Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us today here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short of Welcome Home Financial Partners. WelcomeHomeFP.com is the website if you want to find out more about Ralph, Tim, the entire team behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. Find out about their First Friday events. We're going to talk about that, the one coming up in March here in a little bit. But also the phone number to reach out, 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined, as always, by the father-son team behind Welcome Home Financial Partners, Ralph and Tim. How are you doing today?
Doing great.
Doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. You know, we're going to take a deep dive into coins and coin collections and what have you a little later on in the show. But first of all, I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your day to join, to spend with the listeners here. But I want to dive in talking about the market. I think that's something that is pretty prominent on people's minds. Start off, I want the listeners out there to take a look at the balance in their 401k, or if they have an idea of what that is in their brain if they've checked recently. Then I want them to subtract 10%. Probably not a great feeling, but the reason that I'm asking them to do that is because that is a normal occurrence in the stock market. On average, a 10% fluctuation happens once a year, and it's been close to a year, over 300 days since the last one. We haven't had a significant pullback in the market in over 4 years, and 2008, the market crashed in 2008. That was 17 years ago. So people are very much what have you done for me lately? They have that mentality. Do you find that people are getting complacent when it comes to protecting their money?
Yeah, I think most people at this point, they've been complacent because we're all victim of, recent memory, right? Mm-hmm. So since 2008, we had a really good bull run in the market, and there's been some ups and some downs. There's been a couple bad years in there, but it's not quite as much as 2008, and that's what everybody remembers because depending on where you had your money, you could have lost a substantial amount, whether it's 30%, 50%, what have you, right? So I think a lot of people, it comes down to timing. Right. And I think that's where people try to get it wrong because they're trying to time. Hey, let me just get to this percentage, or let me get to this amount, or let me see the S&P 500 get to this value. That's the issue at hand. And, if you're getting too complacent and you're not worried about protecting your money. And if we do have, the odds are there's going to be some times coming up that might not be quite as good. So if we've seen such a time span in between a market crash or a correction or a recession, whatever you want to chalk it up to be, that could really hurt your retirement dreams. And that's what you don't want to do because as you're closer, your time horizon's getting shorter. So you've got to make sure if 2008 repeats itself or we have a 10% or a 20% drop, we want to make sure we've got some protection built in there.
What I would say to most people is, it really depends whether you can be complacent or not is what is your age and how long before you retire. I mean, if you're in your 20s and 30s, we've been going on a great bull run and everybody thinks it's going to always continue that way. And it might, but it might not. But if you're in your 20s and 30s, guess what? You really don't need to worry about it. Just keep throwing money into the program that you've got and things will work out later down the road when you have to make certain decisions about how you invested the money towards your retirement accounts. Because once you're in retirement or near retirement, that 10 or 15, 20% drop in your bank account, which is your old 401k or IRA, will probably affect you not just emotionally and mentally, but also your pocketbook. You may not be able to afford all the things that you talked about. I'm going to kind of give you an example. I had a lady call me last night in a frantic situation because she just found out that her mother needed to come and see me, or both of them did, because they didn't quite understand what was going on because her accountant, who now became her financial advisor, who has really, my understanding, no credentials other than just being an accountant doing the taxes. She has over $1 million just in Dominion Energy stock here in the state of Virginia. And then he put her into Bitcoin. And the daughter is like, what is he doing? I'm like, that's a very good question. Your mother's 89 years old. Why is she in Bitcoin with a large amount of money and not accounting for the risk? So here's what I'm going to say to most people. If you had $1 million in one stock and it dropped 20%, which is not uncommon in some stocks. You can take a look at, even if you had Bitcoin, it goes from, $60,000 to $100,000 within a span of a week or two.
Yeah, not volatile whatsoever.
That's right. So if you're needing money to live on, that's quite a wild swing. And all of a sudden, if you lost that kind of money in your bank account, how's it going to make you feel? What are you going to do? You're probably going to panic and do things that you don't want to do. And a lot of people need to understand that, just a few months ago, the average rate of return for the S&P 500 index over a 20-year period, somewhere around 7.5 to 7.9%, while the average investor is only about 1.9. What's the difference? Invest in the same time period. That difference is called emotion. People get in when they don't need to get in. They buy high and sell low, which is completely opposite of what you should be doing.
Yeah. And Chris, talking about the complacency, I mean, we've fielded so many calls over the last few weeks, the great resignation for the federal government or whatever they're calling it.
Right.
I think that's where complacency really comes in, because we've worked with a lot of government employees over the years through the federal government and state government for that fact. But they, hey, I don't want to do this yet. I'm going to work another 5 more years or another 10 more years. And now all of a sudden they've got split decisions that they have to make. Whether that's right or whether that's wrong, is to be determined. But I think that's where things come in, because everybody talks about when's the perfect time to retire. Well, the perfect time is when you know you can retire and you don't have to worry, right? So being complacent with these federal employees, now they're scared because, hey, I was going to work another 5 years, but now if I don't resign now, and we know, I guess the deadline's over. I feel like it's changed so many times, but, you've got to make sure that you're prepared, because not just, having an ultimatum of resign, or maybe potentially you might be laid off or furloughed or whatever, but also too is your health. So if you're working and everything's great and we got another 5-10 years, but now all of a sudden you have a really bad health scare, maybe you can't go back to work. So there's a lot of things that come into play, but complacency, not taking action, isn't going to be a good strategy for retirement.
I think a lot of people just are afraid to make some moves because they don't know exactly what they need to do. And that's kind of why, you need to speak to a fiduciary advisory service that can help you, guide you through some of these ups and downs that you're about to do. Because even if you take a look at the stock market and you look at all the indexes and all that stuff, most of the ups and downs is going to be caused by just a few stocks, particularly now in the high tech situation. So, it's just, there's so much information out there that if you don't have a lot of experience at trying to figure out what's right and maybe what's not so right, and it all depends on you and what you're trying to do. The person next to you when you're standing in line at the grocery store probably doesn't have the same bank account as you do, maybe doesn't have the same aspirations that you do in retirement, may not have any grandkids, or may not have any kids that kind of sapped all your savings while they were growing up, right?
Hey, now.
you understand that, right, Chris?
Yeah.
But, kids are very expensive, but it always depends on you, your situation, your aspirations. What do you want to do? What do you envision? It's not about what I want you to do. It's not about what Chris wants you to do. It's about you and what you're trying to accomplish. We have people coming in that want to leave everything they've got to their kids or grandkids. And that's probably not everybody around this table, but that's the way it does happen some days. But you just need to focus on you and your goals. And how do you get there? Do you know how to get there? That is why a fiduciary can help you along the way.
And that's where that retirement roadmap really comes into play that you guys do, the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, to help you get there, because everyone, their goal is going to be a little bit different, and their starting point is certainly going to be different. And so finding that right place to go. And there's going to be detours on the way. There's going to be market fluctuations. There's going to be legislative changes that could drastically alter the course of the market. Here's the thing: is you want to make sure that we're all older and, for the most part, wiser and certainly closer to retirement than we were back in 2008. I remember in 2008 when the market was coming down. I was, well, we won't get into it. I was younger, but I knew it wasn't good. I knew that I also had time on my side because I was quite a good ways away from retiring. Now it's been 17 years and I'm still a little bit away from retiring, but I don't, those market pullbacks I think will make me feel more uncomfortable. Now, back in 2008, you go to the corner offices where the executives were that were older, that were closer to retirement. They had a different look on their face. They were certainly much more concerned because, I'm guessing looking in hindsight, they were heavily invested in the market. Yes, the market has done really well the past 2 years. We can't discount that. And no one wants to kill the goose that's laying the golden egg. But if there is a significant pullback, it's not really a question of if, but when there is a market pullback, how is that going to affect you? Is it going to be, a 20% reduction in your overall balance? It's finding that right. Just remember the saying, what goes up must come down. And you want to just make sure that when it does come down, it doesn't make your retirement come crumbling down with it. That is where that retirement roadmap comes into play to help you get to retirement and get through retirement. But it all begins with setting up a complimentary time to speak with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. And you can do that by giving a call, 804-635-3550. Once again, that's 804-635-3550, or going online to the website. That is welcomehomefp.com. President Trump has certainly been busy in his first month in office, making a lot of different changes, signing a lot of executive orders. He recently signed an executive order directing the U.S. Mint to stop production of the penny. It currently costs about 3 cents to produce every penny. So every penny is worth -2 cents when you take into account the cost of making it. So it kind of makes sense to dump it. That could save the government about $200 million a year. When you guys do an analysis of a retirement plan, what are the easiest ways you find to save your clients money?
Well, I think one of the easiest things to do is see what they currently have as far as their plan, as far as their fees. There's a lot of, expense ratios and hidden costs to everybody's plan that you might not necessarily see. But I think this, obviously President Trump has been very busy in his first how many ever days of office. And now I think I'm probably going to stop and pick up that penny when I see it on the sidewalk because it might be worth more than a penny, but it's not. Yeah. So, I think, when we analyze the retirement plan for each individual that comes in, there's a few things that we want to kind of uncover. And usually the first one is starting off with their risk and also their fees. I know fees kind of get in everybody's crawl a little bit because some advisors will say, hey, guess what? We're only going to charge you 0.5%. But when you take a look at the funds that they're currently in, there's a whole lot more fees associated with it, but they're not necessarily going to see it deducted out of their account. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong because I, for one, I'll call myself cheap. It's fine. I'll air that out there, right? I want to make sure that, frugal's a better term, but my wife will say something different. But you get what you pay for, right? And if you feel like just because you go to an advisor that says, hey, I'm going to charge you 0.5%, whereas another advisor might charge you 1% or 2%, what are you really getting out of that? And I think that's what we kind of uncover and we peel back the onion and show you, hey, based off what we see with these funds and this, that, and the other, this is what it looks like. And a lot of people, and I know Dad would tell you the same thing, a lot of people are amazed, right? Well, why wasn't I told this? Well, they're going to give you the prospectus and they're going to run through some different things that you probably won't quite understand. And that's why we do what we do.
So I'm going to ask this question from a business perspective, Chris. So if you own a business and for every thing that you produce, it costs you $3, but you're only getting $1 for it, how long are you going to stay in business? Because that's exactly what we're talking about with the government. I mean, it makes no sense to me whatsoever that if, as a business owner, you cannot stay in business with that kind of philosophy, that kind of production, because guess what? We don't have a printing press for money as a business owner. The only thing that we can do, as my wife would say, if you ever have a situation that you need to resolve, you just go out and make more money. I said, well, that's what you're supposed to do. It's just one of those things. It's not going to be always easy to do the things that you have to do in retirement planning and things like that. But you'd be amazed that the number of people that we go through our roadmap process and we start talking about expenses and income, and at the bottom, all of a sudden, they might have $3,000 a month extra according to the numbers they gave us. And they look at me like, no, that can't be right because, I've got just a few $100s at the end of the month extra after I pay all my bills. I said, well, then you need to go back through and see what numbers you gave me were wrong, because some of the things that I talk to people about in our roadmap is like the information. As I say, there's too many lawyers in the world, because the information you're about to receive from us is only as good as the information we got from you. So if you told us you had one mortgage and actually had 5, guess what? These numbers aren't going to work out. So I would just say that people really need to understand what their numbers are, where their expenses are coming from. And if you're going to be retired, where's your income coming from? Because if you don't have an income plan, then what are you doing? Because now you got to figure out where your paycheck's coming from. Okay. Yeah. Part of your paycheck's going to come from Social Security, if we're all lucky enough for it to be around, which I think it will be. Now, and what aspects is it going to be? We don't know, because things are always going to change. But those are just easy questions to sit down and think about when you start thinking about retiring, because guess what? A lot of people forget that things are going to change in retirement, whether it's the amount of your investments may have increased or it may have dropped. How's that going to affect? What happens if your health changes and you have to start thinking about a nursing home, thinking about assisted living? How's that going to affect you and your plans, if you're lucky enough to have a plan? Because your investment statement from your old 401k or your IRA is not your income plan. It is not your financial plan. It is an investment statement of where you are at that point in time. There's no strategies saying this is where you could be if you did this. This is say, on December 31st of 2024, it was worth this amount of money. It doesn't say that's what it's worth today, because things are going to change. So always be cognizant of the fact that your life in retirement is going to be like your life before retirement. There's always going to be changes. You have to adjust to them. And do you have a plan for that? Most people, and like Tim was talking about earlier, most people in this area around here did not think that they were going to be maybe let go because of government stopping some of the things that they've been doing. Now they got to make adjustments. So what are you going to have to do? If you move from Fredericksburg to Charlottesville because you didn't want to have to go into work anymore and you were remote, and now all of a sudden, guess what? You're living in Charlottesville and you have to go to Woodbridge, go back to work because you work for a DOD. That's a change that you didn't anticipate, or you probably wouldn't have moved to Charlottesville.
Yeah, and we've been seeing that quite a bit, right? So people move 2-3 hours away because they've been virtual, and they were, I don't know if they were promised, but they didn't anticipate ever going back into the office. And now if you have to travel 4 hours round trip a day, either you will move, get burnt out, or retire. So that's where it's important to always make sure that you're kind of ahead of the game. We talked about earlier about complacency. Well, that's kind of where we're at. So there are a lot of things in life that you can't control, and you need to focus on the ones that you can control. And one of the things that you can control is being prepared for retirement.
And the best way to be prepared is to have a plan put in place, or, the retirement roadmap that the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners puts together, to know that, if there are changes, there will be changes over the course of life. And I think we're all aware those changes are rarely inexpensive. My father, I talk about him, often. He did 23 years in the Army, went back to work as a civilian contractor, and was working out of a base in Georgia. They shut down a good number of the military bases in Georgia, but he hadn't retired from that civilian sector yet. So he spent some years in Fort Bragg. And then towards the end of it, he ran the numbers and realized he did not want to continue to be there, with my mother being in Georgia still, him being at Fort Bragg. So they ran the numbers. He was about 3 years shy of that retirement, that quote unquote retirement. And they said, you can retire now. It's going to be, X amount less per year that you didn't do your full. But they ran the numbers. They found out they were okay. He's retired. They're back in Georgia. They're very happy. They're doing that. But they had a plan in place. They ran those numbers and they knew that they would be okay. That is the thing. Go ahead and have a plan put in place. Perhaps it is your desire, as we talked about earlier, to continue working as long as you want to never retire. sometimes that's taken out of our hands with these layoffs that we've been talking about, with health situations. What do you do then? Do you panic and just say, well, I hope it's going to be okay? Or do you have a plan to fall back on? There's no time like the present to really get serious about your retirement. Obviously, had you started years ago, there are more steps that you could have taken. But in the meantime, it's really no time like the present, literally. There's no time machines in the office at Welcome Home Financial Partners. There's certainly no crystal balls, but what they do have is the experience and the skill set to help get you to, through, and beyond retirement. That all begins with setting up a time to speak with them. 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550 or online, welcomehomefp.com. It costs 3 cents to make a penny. We were talking before the break, Ralph. You said it costs 12 cents to make a nickel?
14 cents is what I heard.
14 cents. Okay, so that is another loss on top of that. I got this audio from Ray Zwadney about state quarters. I just want to play this really quick.
I'm in my 30s, and the closest thing that I have to a retirement plan is that map of the state quarters my grandma left me when she died. And yo, it wasn't even finished. But she left me this map like it was going to change my life. She goes, Ray, all you got to do, finish this, find Maine and Utah. And who knows what this is going to be worth? It's like, who knows? Me, Graham, $12.50. Price of the quarters and the cardboard. I know.
Well, who knows how much it costs to actually make those quarters? So it may be worth more than $12.50, maybe worth less than $12.50. But again, it just goes to show his retirement plan is a book of quarters. Hopefully, people out there, they're situated a little bit better than that. But it just goes to show what you guys were talking about earlier. Retirement accounts, those 401ks, those balances you may have are not retirement plans. How do you turn that into income? There is a major difference between having those robust balances and actually having a plan in place. And there is a major difference between like going to the grocery store. You could have all the ingredients to make, a great cake or whatever the dish is. But if you don't have the recipe, if you don't have the know-how to do that, well, you're just going to end up with a soupy mess. And so that is what the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners helps you with, is helping create, turning these ingredients that you've got, that you've accumulated, that you've saved, and turn them into this retirement, this robust, hopefully this 20, 30-year plan that you can enjoy and not have to worry about, what may come down the line. Control what you can control. Set up a time to speak with Ralph and Tim Short at Welcome Home Financial Partners. Once again, 804-635-3550, or go online to the website, schedule a time there as well. Find out more about that First Friday event and reach out. It is all complimentary, that conversation. welcomehomefp.com. As always, want to thank you so much for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Really do appreciate you guys taking the time to spend with us today. Gentlemen, appreciate you taking the time to spend with the listeners. Hope you have a great week out there. Hope everyone stays warm out there, by the way. And as we wrap up here, I do want to leave you with the final word.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So we appreciate your time and appreciate everybody listening. But, today I kind of want to speak to the federal government employees. There's a lot of craziness out there, a lot of uncertainty, and people are pretty nervous, right? So let's make sure that no matter what happens, whether you can control it or not, let's get you prepared. So give us a call, visit the website. We'd love to get you in and, kind of put some of these, some of the stress at ease, if you will. So once again, we want to thank everybody for listening. Give us a call and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors LLC and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.